Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:07. Good. Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So welcome. We have both three things that I'd like to recognize. The first one, which is joyous, which is we would like to congratulate Jenny DeVos for being an employee of the Merrimack Public Library for 5 years. And not just that, for all of the wonderful things that you do. We are very appreciative. And I know Yvette was regaling us with some of your achievements and all that you bring to the community yesterday. So perhaps you'd like to share some of that, Yvette.
I would love to share that. So, as Jenny said right before we started our meeting, she grew up coming to the library and attending our library programs. And now she makes them, she creates them and executes them beautifully. Jenny started with us in 2018, obviously this time of the year, and has worked every job in the youth services department, starting as a page aide, and then moving to part-time aide, and now as a full-time library assistant. And that first promotion was just after a few months of her working as an aide. So I think that demonstrates already, Jenny had demonstrated and shown her adeptness at the job, and I think the potential for doing more. Kathy Walter is her supervisor, our head of youth services, and she says she is an excellent right hand. I appreciate her self-motivation, enthusiasm, and dedication to the library. So a couple of things that Jenny does. All of the social media you see coming out of the youth services department is Jenny's. That includes Canva, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook posts, lots of YouTube, and lots of Facebook posts. Did I say Facebook twice? Because there's video and static posts. She's one of our passport acceptance agents. She's really experimented with diverse story times, including sensory story times. And I don't know when that was. That was pretty early on that you were playing with that. Yeah.
So sensory storytime is something that I started within 4 or 5 months of being the aide.
Okay.
So back in 2018,
Yep.
The end of 2018, early 2019.
Yeah. And so just explain what that really means. What does it mean as a sensory story?
So sensory storytime, we kind of like slowed things down. We lowered the lights a little bit to give it kind of like a more laid back experience. There was a lot of sign language involved in that, and exploring with different textiles as we read the stories to kind of bring the stories into the worlds of the kids like attending.
Yeah. So that's
wonderful.
That's
like-
innovative.
Yeah.
Because now you'll have like a sensory movie at the movie theater, and
Yeah.
I think I think the library, I think our library is really ahead of a trend, or sometimes creates something that might become a trend. And that's all because of our staff, people like Jenny. So she also has presented school readiness workshops, Gizmo's mental health picnic. Gizmo, want to talk about Gizmo?
I love Gizmo so much. Gizmo's Guide to Mental Health is a little dog. It started with a dog and like just a little story. And now they're an organization, and they do a lot of anti-suicide prevention work without mentioning the word suicide to kiddos, to really scale it down so that you start that mental health conversation at a much younger age to do the preventative measures maybe before a crisis hits. So kids know to express their feelings and how to slow down, or who they can talk to if they're feeling overwhelmed or these big feelings.
Yeah. Again, innovation. Jenny is the face you are always going to see at Outreach. Always. I've attended outreach events with you, and they're just a blast. And I think, you seem to know everyone. And the kids love seeing our staff out in the wild, as we say. Jenny also orders materials for the collection. I don't know if you've got a specific piece of the collection you're managing right now, or just whatever.
Kathy and I share everything.
Okay.
So Library of Things, we'll share that. We'll both do research on that pretty intensely, and books of all varieties, DVDs, stuff like that. So
Okay, excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, again, excellent right hand. There was a project you worked on a while back, leveling the early readers to make it easier for parents and readers to browse.
Yes.
This thing was a long time coming, because back when I was the head of children's, 10 plus years ago, this was parents would come in and not know where to find their kids' appropriate reading level, and the school did it different than how we had done it, and that was leveling this part of the collection was your project.
Yeah, it started with kind of reaching out to other libraries within the consortium, seeing how they leveled their early readers, talking to different school librarians to see how they level them in the schools, and kind of finding a happy medium and leaving that guide out so that we always have a key for parents to refer to. The easiest way to describe it to parents when they're starting to look is orange is at the bottom. In theory, that's when you're starting to read when you're a little bit smaller. And as you grow with the books, and they get more difficult the higher you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, fantastic. Displays, you create our displays. I'm very happy that Jenny is now planning the parades that we go to on July 4th. That used to mean my job, and it's a lot to take on. And I always thought it made sense to tie with the summer reading theme. And now I just need to report to Jenny and say, what do you want me to do? What are we doing? And they've been amazing. And especially, when we've had restrictions with the parade and we weren't allowed to pass out candy, it was, we all have a bubble gun, and that's how we're going to interact to them. And it was, just the solution is there. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Again, during the pandemic, you quickly adapted to virtual programming, and some of the things you're still doing on Facebook. I know we've had a lot of over the years different ways to do pajama story time, but it's really hard to put a kid in pajamas and put them in the car and bring them to the library, and now that's all virtual.
Yep.
So, and it's changed. It's not even, it's not story time.
Yeah, they're not books anymore. Oh. So that's my Tuesday night sleepy stories. We do flannel stories or a puppet show. Again, a lot of sign language in there because I don't want to just sit there and sing lullabies to the kids. That feels a little weird to me. So I'll teach myself the sign language in the correct order for sign language grammar to then share with the kiddos. And then we highlight 3 or 4 different signs that we'll work on for that week in that story time.
Yeah. And people show up.
Big time. Big time. I normally have about 6 or 7 people live, and then a week later, I'll have over 120 views on that same video.
Wow. Really powerful. Jenny has also done the story walks in the parks and teen programming.
Yes.
So a lot of teen programming in terms of teen programming being self-directed, passive programs, as well as the active programs like an escape room or murder mystery. I remember you were telling me once, one of the earlier I think it was a murder mystery where you did this TikTok where you were all the parts.
Oh my gosh.
Riot,
That was embarrassing to film. I'm running downstairs, going into the bathroom, I'm changing, I'm running back into teen, and I'm like filming like a 5-second snippet and then doing it all over again. That was our virtual murder mystery dinner because the world had shut down. We had not opened up to the public yet. So I was just running back and forth, and I worked up such a sweat doing that. And I had the whole circulation staff and adult services looking at me, making faces. And I'm like, if it gets people to show up, that's all I care about.
Right. And then the passive programs. I don't know if you know what that word means, so maybe say what that means.
Yeah, so the passive programs we have are things where we can have people kind of come in and they can run things on their own, at their own pacing, on their own time. So, we've had different kind of like STEM activities where I like sat there and I just like cut out like cardboard pieces that they could stick together and make a sculpture. And then, okay, great, you made this fantastic sculpture. And then you leave it there and then someone else can kind of swoop in and do their own thing. We've also done teen take and makes where, again, they're doing it at their own pacing, but everything's right in a bag for them, and then they can bring it home with them when they're done with it. And they can do it at the library or they can do it at home, either way.
So speaking of bags, I have to say, I think it was last year's teen summer reading, my youngest child, who is not a reader, unfortunately, yet, came to an event and got a bribe bag. And I wrote to Kathy and I said, this was the perfect thing to give to my kid because it had a plush squishy in it, some kind of gift card, which I didn't note at the time, and the perfect batch of stickers that are now all over their laptop. So she wrote back to me going, that was Jenny's brainchild. She picked out all the perfect things. I just get to hand them out. So thank you for engaging my non-reader.
I loved the break-in bags because it was a way for us to do an escape room, but again, at someone's own pacing. So like the outside of the bag had little business card sized clues that would give them the hints of the lock that shut the bag. Once you figure out all those clues, then you can unlock the bag, and then it unlocked all the goodies.
Yeah, which were perfect.
I mean, that. Thank you.
How do you pick for a teen? It was perfect.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Thank you. So Jenny also participates in the New Hampshire professional community through our New Hampshire Library Organization, NHLA, and on the different book award committees. If you want to mention that, you can.
Yeah, I am the award chair for Flume and Isinglass, which are the Teen Read Book Awards for the state of New Hampshire. Isinglass books are books that get voted on, hopefully through teens, but teens or librarians that serve teens 7th and 8th grade. And then Flume is freshmen through seniors in high school. So I'm part of the committee. We read a couple hundreds of books with other librarians, other teens. We shorten that list down to 10 books for each award, and then we open it up to the state of New Hampshire. Any teens that want to vote on them absolutely can.
And then voting is?
Voting starts in that first week of April, goes all the way through to the first week of May, and then we announce our winner at the NHLA conference.
Yes, which is also early May.
Yeah.
So Jenny is, as you can see, friendly, approachable. She has incredible customer service skills inside the building, outside the building, and also, is able to communicate with our patrons in sign language and help them in the room in Spanish. So that's everything.
Wow, Jenny, that's amazing.
Smattering of some
That
of
is
her
amazing.
many talents.
Amazing. We are very lucky to have you.
Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
so much. Really.
And that's just 5 years
Wow.
of being here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just 5 years.
It's
Thank you.
impressive and also, wow, we're so lucky. So, yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really.
I really appreciate this.
Yeah. It's our pleasure for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. That was amazing. And I mean, I pay attention to what's going on in the library, but not having children who actively use the children's room, I just had no idea the depth and breadth of the things that were being offered and that Jenny was doing. And that's wonderful. Wonderful. So great. Thank you for sharing that with
You're
us.
very welcome.
Thank you.
So that was the good news. Now I would like to take a moment to recognize that both Sohini Gupta and Karen Freed are serving at their last library board of trustees meeting today. We are sad to see them go and wish them all the best. Sohini has been with us for 3 years. So we thank you very much, Sohini, for all that you've done, for joining the board, for taking on some of the secretary duties to give Karen, who has been a secretary for a long time for this board, but we'll get to her later. So we would like to thank you, Sohini, for all that you've done and for all that you've added to the board. So thank you so much.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. I'm sad to go, but well, I have stuff to take care of in my personal life, and I'll be back hopefully.
Wonderful.
1 or 2 years later, maybe.
Great.
Try settle things down, but it was a good learning experience for me. This is my first time serving on the board in a town, so anywhere in the world, kind of, I should say. So it was good that the residents gave me the opportunity to do this, and y'all welcomed me and taught me a few things, and I think there is a lot to learn, especially the finance part. It's still a little puzzling, but I think I had a good time learning. It was a nice learning experience, and I like to work with you, and I'll miss this meeting times, and I'll miss going out shopping with the stuff for the,
we want to use that for a blurb for future trustees. Like, I'll miss this meeting, says Sohini Gupta.
And the shopping too.
And the shopping.
You can
No,
always go shopping.
Yeah.
Like, every
No,
time
we-
I need to go get snacks, I'll just be like, hey, I'm going.
We really do appreciate all that you've done for stepping in like that. So thank you. And of course, Karen, who, am I correct in saying you've been on the board for 9 years?
Yeah, 19. 2014 was my first year. So that makes 9.
Wow. Well, it has been our pleasure, and we have been incredibly lucky to have you. I've served with you for almost 6 years, and you have been just like so amazing, so reliable, so consistent, so giving of your time and yourself. And we appreciate all that you have done, both as secretary, as our representative on committees around town, and you will be missed. So,
And I will miss you. I need refreshment.
Understandable. Totally. You do not have to
But-
explain it.
But one thing I have learned, and that's really important as a teacher, especially one who really emphasized literature to her students, the fact that I always used to say to them when they were young enough and impressionable enough to believe me, that the library is the most important building in the school and in the town. That the school's library had everything. And of course, this was pre-technology, but still, you'd get rows upon rows of encyclopedias instead of a tablet. And I've had students come up to me in years past, and very recently too, saying, oh, I remember going to the library with you and doing this and that. So it was my pleasure to be able to help and understand more about what the library as an institution means. And it was my pleasure.
Wonderful. Well,
And I'll be popping up here and there. I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry. We still have your numbers on speed dial.
Thank you.
Yes. No. And I did want to take a moment to do that before we got to the business of things, because I wanted to make sure that we, thanked you for everything that you've both done. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for
pleasure.
having me here.
So now on to business, I think. So,
absolutely.
So, okay, we're moving on to our old business, which is February's action items we can start with. Yvette, one of hers was to look into the PO calculation and check on AED validity. She did send us a message that the AED was reviewed and that we are fine with that, which was reassuring. PO calculation, I'm not sure. Was that the discrepancy with the building one that we are still talking about? Yes. Yep. Okay. So Yvette recently sent that they followed up with Tom Boland and he will be getting back to us. So that is still being looked at. The consultant for the strategic planning, I did reach out to Deb Hoadley, and she believes that the best thing for us to do is to let the new board get a meeting under them and get their feet under them and get situated, and then we'll move forward with strategic planning. So we're good for that. Janet was going to move money between trustee accounts, $719.97 from special to fines. Is that correct?
That's done.
And that's done. And Yvette was going to be asking for a proposal. It kind of sounds different here. The action item is written that Yvette will be putting forward a proposal to the town council, which actually what we're doing is asking the town to create a request for proposal like for us. So we're going to be putting it out and asking for proposals back. Am I correct in that? That sounds right.
Yes.
Okay. So that's where we are. Okay. So it looks like we're all caught up on that.
The last meeting thing. I felt that we were requesting the proposal. Then I typed that, and then I felt, oh no, I think the proposal is there.
Yeah, no, the town issues are just like we did with the elevator. They put out an RFP, and then we get proposals from vendors and look at it that way. So SMP, Jason Lacombe from SMP did reach out to Yvette and I to see where things were with the possibility of a new building. And I let him know that we are working our way through our CIP to address some of the items we have on our CIP list because of current needs of the building. So that's where we are with that. I already mentioned the strategic plan. Building maintenance project list. Is there anything we need to look at immediately for that, Yvette?
I think we're just really waiting for the snow to melt and then have the granite step project start. So
Okay.
it's probably going to be April. I mean, here we are, March 21st. So
While we're talking about building stuff, the elevator situation. So I asked Yvette when we would be going before town council, and she said April 20th. So I didn't know if you had communicated that to the vendor that we are looking at doing
I'll
it.
do that, yeah.
So yeah, if you could we put that on an action item that you'll let the vendor know where we are in this process and that we have to go through town council. I noticed on your director's report that it said that, did it say something like Paul has it out for somebody to look at?
he's trying.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
we've talked about that.
Yeah.
It's hard. Okay.
Yeah.
But so as of right now, they have it. If somebody becomes an elevator expert and can look at it, wonderful. Otherwise, we'll be going before the town council on April 20th to ask for money from our CIP to pay for the elevator. So if you could let Stanley know that's where we are, that would be great. Any other things for the building maintenance project list or anything anyone has? Okay. The energy audit. We were concerned about how much it would cost. I asked Yvette to have Iris come and go over things with us. I did forward you that email that she said her hourly rate is $75. She would estimate if she were doing an hour and a half plus travel time, it would be $225. So I'm almost wondering if that's something that we bring up to the new board also, because that would be a way for them to get up to speed if we were to have her come in and talk to us and kind of give them more of an overview and a good picture of where we are, because it's taken us a long time to get to this place, and we've kind of lived through some of the different renditions of what's going on with the building and what's new, and this could be a good introduction to them about the real needs of the space. I don't know, just a thought. I'm looking at you because you will be on the board with me, so I don't know what you're thinking. It's not that I'm disregarding you. I'm just wondering, do you think that's a good idea?
No, I think that is a good idea. I also think we can approve it.
Okay.
But we can
Schedule it.
till after.
Okay. So then I would like to make a motion that we arrange a meeting with Iris. I can't remember her last name. Iris, do you remember her last name? Iris Wyatt, to give us an overview of the energy audit and with an estimated expense of $225.
A second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, 400. So that makes sense. So we know we are going to go through with this, and we will just schedule something for the new trustees. So great. Okay. Wonderful. I think too, when you're coming onto a board and I'm giving them, here's your binders and here's the policy and whatever, having someone talk you through a report of that length is probably a really good way to access that information versus please read this and report back kind of thing. So, okay. All right. I think that's all we have for old business. Anything else? Okay. New business. General ledger, invoice manifest, open POs. We've already talked about that one concern with the open PO where the line doesn't seem to line up. Is there anything else? No? Okay. I have a feeling the policy might be a lengthier discussion item, though. Are we going to look at the meeting room license? Okay, so we're moving on to policy.
So I have two things in terms of policy. One is the town of Merrimack's request for access to public records. This is pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 91-A right to know law. I don't think it makes any sense for us to recreate this form. I think we use their guidelines, their form. There are charges that they have included for making copies of things. And I think we just post this directly to our website.
Does that pertain to the library? I mean, like, would somebody come in and ask with this request and present it to you, or is it just you're making it available to, like, the population to be able to give it to the town hall? I guess I'm just...
That would make, sure, if they can find it easily on our website for the town, but this is for us. If someone says, I want to see all of your emails.
Oh, okay. I was just confused. Okay.
I just don't think we need to recreate the form.
Sure.
I mean, I can put it on library letterhead, but I think
no.
I don't even think that's necessary. If
No.
the town, if this is the
Yeah,
document
exactly.
that the town uses, I think then
just
we just
keep it.
do what they do for
because
something
the
like
attorney
this.
would have gone over
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Okay.
So do you want me to make a motion that we accept this?
Yes.
And I would like to make a motion that we accept the request for access to public records pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 91A right to know law, as is used by the town of Merrimack, and we use it for the library.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Yeah, it makes total sense. They've already had the lawyer review it. Why would we recreate the wheel? And yep, and but we should also make that available to people if they do want something of ours, or if just they want the copy for what the town needed. So perfectly. Okay, great. Thank you.
The second policy is the meeting room policy and a liability waiver, which is what we had. If you remember, I had the town attorney review this, and then they suggested Primex review it. And then Primex had many, many notes on it, so I sent it back to the attorney because I couldn't interpret it properly at not being an attorney. And so the town attorney sent back the policy and it's a different wording. Meeting room use temporary license policy that's in place at the Hampton Library or the Lane Public Library in Hampton. And then it's, there's two, I'm just gonna get the other one. And the application. So I compared these to ours. So it's the policy, meeting room use temporary license policy. So those two ideas are folded into one. And then the application and temporary license use agreement. So policy and agreement. And I went through ours and just highlighted things that were the same that we have already in ours and things that aren't represented in the new proposed one. So for the policy, things that are different are, we say rooms may be booked for activities of a civic, charitable, cultural, educational, or intellectual nature. That's the second bullet. And that really addresses content. And we don't restrict content of a meeting. So I think it makes sense that that was not included in the new version. The other thing is it does not include the parts of the third bullet, which is No group or organization using the meeting room will discriminate meeting attendance on the basis of race, creed, color, age, sexual orientation, disability, gender, religion, national origin, or citizenship status. What we say in both is meetings are open to the public. And then it falls back on, in terms of behavior, it falls back on the patron behavior policy. So I think that also makes sense to omit that, because it's really, how are you behaving in the library, and are you being rude to someone or not? You're going to be asked to leave anyway. So I think it makes sense also. A couple of things that are different that I can have guidance from you, or I can just, kind of ask our staff what logistically will work. One was scheduling. They presented it different than what we do. One was, you can't book 6 months, and ours is different. And this seemed a little complicated, but I don't think that, I don't think continuing to do it our way would be against or falling outside of what Primex is able to do for us in terms of covering liability. So I think that's just registration and how frequently we're able to book someone. They also list in the new policy when the rooms are available, which we just don't do. And that's very hard for us to do, so I would omit that. They also have a different ratio of children to adults. Theirs is 10 to 1, and ours is 20 to 1. And they also say under grade 2 should not be alone in the library, but we have an age, and I think it's 11. So these are both things that point to a different policy, which is the unattended children policy. So, but it's just not grade. That's not how we present it. That's another thing I would clear with Kathy, the head of youth services, because she's involved in that world.
Sure.
I think everything else is fine. For what Primex was saying, and I sent you the email thread if you happen to read it.
Yep.
Yes.
It's really just when you apply to use our room, we are granting you a temporary license to use it. Different language, same idea. I think also when they list out who can use it, things that we never listed are, now Town of Merrimack departments, it makes sense. Public agencies serving the Town of Merrimack, including Hillsborough County and the schools, also makes sense, and we would have included that anyway. It's just very clear listed here. The chamber, also, we didn't list it, but it makes more sense here. And it also kind of, this list addresses rooms may be booked for activities of a civic, charitable, cultural, which is the content. And now we're not even speaking to content, which is not appropriate for us anyway. So it's just this type of organization. They highlight and kind of spell out organized nonprofit groups with current 501c3 or 501c4 IRS status, which was something that when we've had groups in the past or individuals in the past apply to use the room, and they say they're nonprofit, but they're not really. So this will help clarify that and just say, if you're nonprofit, you have this. So I really liked that. And then the last thing that's new is area businesses. Right now we have people who run a business. They might be tutors, or they might just be working like from home, doing remote work and happen to use a meeting room. They don't sign up for it because sometimes the lower room is an open reading room. The same with their small meeting room in Lane. So I don't have a problem. I think that works for us as well. But, it's what the attorney said was it's up to the board what you're willing to allow, but this is what her guidelines are.
I guess I'm trying to think of like a scenario when I say an area business, like, is there something that we would be like, oh, we don't like that idea?
I don't know yet. Yeah.
Would you want someone coming in doing a sales pitch there? Like, I'm just trying to think of what would be like.
But that's already covered elsewhere.
Okay.
So I think some of it is we'll have to see. I can also reach out to Lane to say, what is an example of this?
Yeah.
Because we haven't had it yet. We just kind of say you have to be a nonprofit and end it. So I'm
prohibited
not sure.
activities, is it under there? Like that there's, like where you're saying you can't sell something or, okay.
Right. And you can't charge, attendance, and that's also covered elsewhere.
Okay.
it's okay, but it sounds okay too. There were other sections in her version, in the updated one, where there were highlights, and that would be up to you. So it's, you know, if someone's denied a license to use the room or denied the waiver, they can appeal the decision to me or the board. So that would be leave this, you know, we would fill it into what you think is appropriate with how many days. And then a decision rendered in how many days. So that's kind of that is up to you. I mean, we can do director 14 days. I mean, and then there's also no amendment, alteration, or addition shall be made to the library system components. Requests for such matter should be made to, and usually it would be another thing to go to the director. I can't imagine anything that people would change. And it's also, there's another piece where it says you will not change these things. Although for us, we have furniture in the room and you can move the furniture around. And we ask that you put it back the way you found it. So, you know, it's still, you know, we can slightly adjust the wording so it makes sense for us because we have furniture that people can move around. You know, so those were kind of, let me just check. Notice should be submitted to, if there's an accident, I think we put director in. That seemed a little obvious to me. And then I would forward that to Paul and Primex. And then this has a signature, which is different from ours.
Can I ask us a question about the insurance thing? Like it says, without limiting its indemnification, the user must procure and maintain at its sole cost and expense comprehensive general liability insurance in which the town of Merrimack and Merrimack Public Library are named as additional insureds with coverage limits of no less than $1 million per occurrence.
Yeah,
Like
because
what's-
we had a liability form that we were including with the meeting room application. And they said that form to say, you sign off that if something happens, the library, its employees, its trustees, the town of Merrimack, those employees are not held liable. And they said, those forms don't hold up in court. What you want is this.
So, but you're telling people they have to get insurance to use the building?
Again, that's one I don't understand what the situation would be. So I want to go back and, you know.
Because it says, I mean, it just says the user. So I'm like,
Yeah.
is that everybody that's going to go into there has to? Yeah. Could we look into that? Because that seems like,
because that's the liability piece.
because then I don't want it to be, and then it says you can waive it. Well, yeah, but then if we waive it, are we not upholding what we have to do for liability? Like that's like, I think it just strikes me as like odd for like, I just want to use the meeting room for my homeowners group. I need to have $1 million insurance.
Yeah,
That seems
I mean,
like
that's,
it's,
I'm going to look.
okay.
That's,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not ready to approve this in any way, shape, or form. Like, I feel like there's a lot of.
Yeah, our department heads, we haven't sat down to talk about
Yeah.
it yet, but I wanted to be able to at least speak to it.
Yeah.
Know, because it's a huge document.
It is huge. It is huge, and I think that I appreciate the time that's going to Primex and the attorney to make sure everything is accurate.
Yeah.
We also don't want it. I mean, we want to limit our liability, obviously. We also are providing a community service of a room. Like this is prohibitive, you know, to expect people to do that.
I know, but I just want to repeat that this is the language that they're suggesting instead of this
Yeah.
release of liability.
Are you going to check people's insurance? Like, I'm just thinking, how does that look like in the?
I don't know. I'm
And where
going
do
to
you-
ask Lane.
Yeah, and where do you go to get a policy to use a meeting? Like, I don't know. Like, that's it. And we're supposed to be doing it free. Like, I don't know. Like, I just have some issues with that.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, there's definitely, it's a lot, and there's definitely questions about, I mean, I have other questions about, give me the worst case scenario of, you know, things that are happening in the United States. You know, Kirk Cameron wants to have a story time in my meeting room, and what's the logistic impact of that? Do I need police? How how do I manage crowds? How do I manage picketers? You know, this is happening in other libraries. So I don't-
totally get it. I know. I just it says if user doesn't have the required coverage, they contact an insurance agent to inquire about purchasing a special events policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can get a special events license from the town, but again, what are the steps in Merrimack? And that's a lot of steps.
Yeah.
So I want to know, how does that work out in a practical way in Hampton? And because this is their policy, and that's the one that's recommended from the attorney.
Yeah, could
So-
you like ask them those
Yep.
questions and find out like, what does this look like in
Yeah.
actuality? And does it discourage people to the point where the room isn't getting used, or
Right.
do organizations already have an insurance policy in place? So they just, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like,
Yeah, I mean, probably something like the Girl Scouts will, but
Mhm.
I
but
mean,
are they going to
again,
put
it's
town,
like this?
but are they going to put
Right.
town of Merrimack as the beneficiary? Like that's
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
mm,
The other thing that we are doing in the library that this connects to is the request form is now online, and it would, if we go with this version, then it would be a much longer application, and I'm not sure what it looks like online in the online format yet, and that's the application one, you know, with all the same questions we have, but more questions in terms of the nonprofit status, which we've had some confusion about, and then the waiver pieces, you know. So, what other questions do you have that I'm gonna bring back to Lane and the attorney and discuss with the department heads?
well, the insurance, like what does that look like in practicality? Is that really like, I mean, are we getting to the point where we're so prohibitive that people aren't going to use the room? Then I'm not sure what we're really doing that. I find just like, I'm not saying we don't need it. I'm just questioning, like, what does that look like? You
Or
know?
just in general, I mean, this was a lot of information.
Yes.
And are the meeting rooms being used? I mean, by all sorts of organizations,
Mhm.
by their list, I guess you could say. Because, I mean, I was just thinking about it. I mean, there are a lot of organizations, and I'm like, there's no way they would come and use it if they had that insurance piece.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That just, I'd just like to see hear from the other library what that actually looks like.
Okay.
I'm also curious, does the town hall in their
Mhm.
meeting rooms?
They don't have a policy.
Oh, that was my question
Okay.
too. Like, what's across the town?
No.
Yeah.
I asked that years ago. They have no policy.
So she has said over here alternate approach to use of meeting room by third parties. There she's saying you can have a license agreement. So
But that's this.
with the insurance and indemnification, that's a license agreement, she's saying. Alternative approach, there is a section on alternative approach. In the first in the
So where are we?
Alternate approach.
second email from
Yeah, the license agreement. So,
Primex, yes.
yeah, that's what this is giving us, is the license agreement. They're using the word license agreement
Mhm.
instead of like meeting room policy. Yeah, because it says a license agreement that includes insurance and indemnification clauses.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you read that paragraph, there's things about challenges that
Yeah.
people might have
Mm-hmm.
to that. Yep. Yeah, I think this is a lot of information for us to
Yes.
take in. I think if you could just like talk to Lane and see what this actually looks like in their everyday practice and how it's worked out for the community, because that's ultimately like, yes, we want to protect the library. We also want to make it a room that the community can easily use. You know, that's
Yeah.
the trying to find a balance between those two things. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to vote on it. Obviously, we have a lot of
Oh,
a lot of
okay.
things.
I'm just
No.
curious,
Yeah.
what prompted this? I don't remember.
Updating the policy.
Okay,
It was
that's
just
what I didn't know if
it
there was something else,
no,
'cause-
no, it was
Okay.
just updating the policy, and let's have the attorney check it,
Got it.
and then
You opened a can of worms.
I opened a can of worms.
Yeah, but I'd rather have the can of worms open now than
Yeah.
when there's an issue. So at least we're being mindful of it and trying to address it
Yeah.
before it becomes a problem. So I think it's the right thing to do, even if it's a little bit daunting, and try to figure it out. So,
Okay.
all right. Well, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, director's report.
Okay. I just have to clear paper. That goes here.
Yeah.
So director's report. A couple of donations. We received a donation of a children's book entitled Fidgety Finn and His Good Friend Shadow by L.B. Gray, donated by the author Larry L.B. Gray, a Merrimack resident. Kathy would like to add this to the children's section.
I'll make a motion that we accept the book Fidgety Finn and His Good Friend Shadow by L.B. Gray.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? 400. Thank you very much. Looks adorable.
We also had a donation that they put on my chair today. Dave Chestnut, who is one of the folks who works with AARP, donated this puzzle. This is a image of the puzzle lid.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Could you imagine?
That's just awesome.
Minifigure faces. And we'd like to add this to the Library of Things collection. It is 1,000 pieces.
That's just awesome.
I'll make a motion that we accept the Lego minifigure faces puzzle.
I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Okay.
400.
And then the last donation, the Garden in the Woods Pass, we received a notice that it was up for renewal, and I had Alyssa reach out to Michael Druin, who initially donated the funds for that. He donated the funds for that. She'd love to extend it again. So would you like to accept the donation of $135 from Michael Druin?
Sure. I would make a motion that we accept the donation of $135 from Michael Druin to be put towards the renewal of the pass to Garden in the Woods.
I'll second.
Okay. We'll just, everybody has their hands up already, so I'm going to say all those in favor. 400. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay. I don't know if you had voted to accept in the public minutes the two new staff.
We did not. In
Okay.
fact, I don't think we voted. I just signed the PARs
Okay.
because we had agreed that we could do that
Yes.
to process them. So we do need to vote to accept
Okay.
those.
So Rebecca Laidlaw, we would like to hire her as the Youth Services part-time aide.
I'll make a motion to accept Rebecca Laidlaw for the position of Youth Services Aide.
Okay. Any discussion or questions for Yvette? Okay. All those in favor? 400. Thank you.
Okay. And also Kat Smith, we would like to offer a part-time circulation aide position to Kat.
Sure. I'll make a motion that we offer the part-time circulation aide position to Kat Smith.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? 400.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Trying to see what I have underlined. In terms of funding requests from the staff, we're still working on our year-end spreadsheet. But because you mentioned it in terms of shopping and going shopping for the staff, National Library Week is coming up in April. So it depends on what you want to do to recognize the staff.
Do you know the week that it is?
I would have to look it up.
Okay. So, I mean, we've done the snacks in the past, which seem to be just like people like them and they can just grab and go, right? That kind of seems like a good thing if people are interested in doing that again. Like something for everybody. They look forward to it. They can grab it. Okay. Do you know what you spent last time, Janet, or what was that? Around the amount that we voted?
Around 200, we kind of,
I think so. I can look it up.
but we don't spend 200.
Oh, yeah. It's the last week. Vacation week.
It's vacation week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you have your meeting, but it's.
Yeah, well, I think we'd rather just make that decision and
Okay.
Yeah.
so,
I'll look it up.
okay. Yeah, Janet will find out how much and then we can.
We talked about the energy audit.
I did want to address Hoopla, and since it's in your director's report, it seemed like the Hoopla.
Yes.
So I'll wait till Janet figures out that.
Oh, no,
and
you
then-
can go.
Okay.
'cause it's gonna take-
So in Yvette's director's report, she mentions that we have had 2 patrons and express concern and reach out to us regarding the cancellation of Hoopla. And I forwarded you their email, the email with the documents attached. And they raised great points that, Hoopla is diverse. There's many authors and books that you can find on there that you can't find anywhere else. And it pains us also. Like I just feel, I know that there are some of us on the board who are very upset that we had to get rid of this. But unfortunately, it is unsustainable. We've talked about this a little bit, but I do want to address it. And I know Yvette looked into it just to verify too, that for the cost that we were paying, which was $15,000 a year, only 250 people were able to use the service, really, because as that starts to increase, the amount goes up. So it's not one of those things where the more people that you get that using it, that it's like, okay, well, now we have 1,000 people using it and it's costing us $15,000. It wouldn't work that way. If you had 1,000 people using it, if you extrapolate that out, it would be $60,000 to support that. And that puts the library in a position where we can't keep up the service. Obviously, we can't sustain it. And we also are committed to a service that we can't encourage people to use, because the more people who use it, the sooner it's going to be gone. So it's a very unsustainable business model. And I don't think we're the only library that's finding that a lot of libraries have had to pull back. As Yvette mentioned, that right now we would, if we kept going with this service, we would need to add more money to it. Even $15,000 wouldn't have been enough to get us through this year. So, Yvette, did you look into some other things or have other things to read?
Some
Information?
So I looked at our stats from the beginning, from when we started it in January 2017. We started with a budget of $7,000. And at the time, we had 403 unique users. The average of the month for that first 6 months was 100. So in 5 years, we doubled the users by a bit, and we also actually went over, we more than doubled the cost. Last year, we budgeted for $15,000 for it, but we actually spent $2,258 over that. So I had come to the board to ask for additional funds. And if you look every year since we started, I've had to come back to you for additional funds. So, and this was, we dropped down to 3 checkouts to try and slow down the spending, but that actually did nothing. So I think for the usage, over the years, we seem to, it climbs slowly by about 25 people a year. But it's still not, I agree, it's still not a sustainable model. I've talked to other library directors who are also facing the same challenge of how can I sustain this, and they are ultimately deciding I can't, and sometimes they're another library in the state is talking to the vendors also, and the answer from the vendors is, well, we can just give you a different price point of the kind of materials that will be available, but that may not be materials that people want to check out. So then why are we spending this money for second tier materials?
Well, and I think another suggestion that one of the people brought up was maybe working with the consortium, but unfortunately it's because of them, it doesn't work the same way it would work for Overdrive or one of those things where we all chip in and we get access to more resources and kind of split the cost and have unique users. Because Hoopla, it's available when you want it, we pay per usage. So what is the range in the cost of things?
It's everything from like 99 cents to, let's say, $5 a book.
Right. So that doesn't matter if we split it with the consortium or not. It's just the way that for each individual use we pay, which is not the way any other service that we subscribe to works, if I'm
No.
correct. Everything else is more when we do it as a consortium, it's a better deal for our patrons. And this
Yeah,
one-
yeah, and we do have the cloud library as a consortial purchase. So we pay in $5,000 a year, and then you can just check out items. So it's not like it's going to cost more if more people use it. The price per person and price per checkout gets less the more people
Sure.
who use that kind of
Right.
thing. This is a totally different model.
Yeah.
With the 250 people on average, Alyssa, the writing on the bottom of this spreadsheet is stuff that Alyssa had put together. We notified 912 patrons who were still actively had at least one checkout and an active card between now and last year. So we've only ever had 1,203 users over the 5 years. We had active cards that had at least one checkout on Hoopla. That was 912, so that's who she notified. But our average users are 250, which is 3% of our total cards, which that's a lot of
know.
money.
I know it is.
That's a lot of money for 3% of all of our card holders.
Yeah. And
It's
I don't know if either one of you have actively used Hoopla, but I know Janet and I did because our initial reaction when we saw this was like, no way. But the reality is, unfortunately, that until they change their business model, we just can't do it because we'll never be able to pay for it. We'll never be able to grow it. It just doesn't make sense, unfortunately. So I wish there was a better answer. This would have been something I would have been happy to reconsider if we had found like some way to add it back in, but we just can't sustain that. It could easily grow to 20 plus, $1,000 for it. So
Oh yeah, and you can see that.
yeah,
It just keeps climbing. So.
I know. So I will reach out to both of those people
Okay.
and just send them an email in the next day or two and let them know that we discussed it. And I hope that that the staff will keep an eye on this. And if they hear of a change, and if Hoopla is offering any other way of doing things, if there's an opportunity to access that. And I also would ask that maybe the staff would continue to consider looking at services that could supplement this.
Yep.
If there's something else that comes available that maybe isn't Hoopla, but maybe takes into account some of the different kinds of authors that people are able to get through there that they can't get elsewhere, that we would look at it. Yes.
Yeah, I did talk to Bobby Slosser up at the State Library, and she manages the Overdrive Libby account. So that's the other electronic books that we purchase in as part of the state consortium. She said, a patron can always make a request through the staff to buy one, and these folks were interested in audiobooks. So to buy one audiobook, we were tracking one particular title. The cost would be $56 for one checkout. So not multiple users checking out at the same time, but one single checkout. If we wanted to have a title where it could be multiple simultaneous checkouts, their next tier is 100 checkouts that are simultaneous, and it would be another $90 on top of that. So we are given, for everyone in the state, there's a formula for how much each library pays in to participate into Overdrive Libby. And I don't know our number off the top of my head, but that would be, the consortium group money, on one title being $140.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things about Hoopla that I've noticed is that, I've gotten the occasional one title, but usually it's like a series. Like they have a whole series, so you get hooked and then you listen to one after
Sure.
the other, which is how the cost goes up because you're invested in the series, but also not sustainable. In Overdrive, we can't afford to pay for a whole series of audiobooks all the time.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And I think, in terms of collection development, kind of to take a broader look at this, we're trying to spend money in the most efficient way, I think, possible, and buying popular items. It's a public library. We tend to buy popular items, things that lots of people are going to be interested in reading, and not necessarily a niche thing over here that one or two people might want to buy and read. I mean, there's only so much we can do, and we try to have something for everything in the library, but for everyone. But it's a challenge because funds are limited.
Yeah.
I
I know this was a very hard one for me to stomach, but it's the right thing to do.
Too.
Yep.
Yeah, it's tough.
Okay. Any comments or discussion? I really appreciate that people took the time to reach out. I really value that they did that, and it shows me what a valuable service it is. So I do hope that there's a change, that they get enough pressure from people to say we need to rethink this. I don't know. So, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else on your director's report?
I'm trying to see what I underlined to mention. We did the meeting room. I think everyone by now has seen us on New Hampshire Chronicle, and we've also been featured under Fritz Weatherby's segments, and he did 3 on Merrimack, and in the library. Was filmed in the Lowell Room. One is about the library, the other 2 about different historic places in town, which was very neat. I met with Stephanie and Jenny about their marketing ideas, so we're going to continue to meet, and it was a fantastic meeting. They got a lot of ideas from a chamber lunch they went to. The model was MUR presenting, and they wanted us to buy, or they wanted attendees to buy ad space for them, but we can work with Merrimack TV and really produce the same kinds of things. So they're already working with Merrimack TV and reaching out to Nick to see, what can we do? So that was great. We have COVID tests available to pick up at the library. They're in the kind of vestibule, they're in the foyer, in the main library right outside the front door, and then they're also down in the children's room. I did have one person email me with a question about the expiration date that's listed on the package, which is January, but we have these tests because we heard from the Department of Health and Human Services that these tests are actually still viable through October.
I think I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think there was something on that sign that said you can scan the QR code and it gives you more information about that.
You can,
too.
and this person who contacted me didn't maybe read the sign.
Okay.
But that's just kind of the information we're putting out there. Is we have the access if you want to see it. You can hit the code, and hopefully we'll just keep putting that information out there. We went through 7 boxes, very large boxes already, and Joanne's going to go and pick up a bunch more because if people want them,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
take 'em,
it's great.
Give them out for Christmas. National
They're
Library
not
Week
cheap,
gifts.
and then sometimes
They are
they're
not
hard to
cheap.
find, so it's good
Yeah.
to have some. So.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know. Did you have questions about anything that I've written down? No? Okay.
No, that's good.
All right.
All right, great.
That's it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Treasurer's report.
That's easy. Okay. So this is for the balance sheet for the month of February. Our fines starting balance was $8,215.19. And we concluded the month with $8,534.65. And then with special, we started with $48,467.49.
Can you repeat that once?
Sure.
48,000.
$48,467.49. And the end of the month, we finished with $45,780.01 cent.
1 cent.
1 cent.
I was putting it with 1 0. Okay.
Yeah.
1 cent.
And I would like to move some money. Actually, I don't think it's in this month. Oh yeah, there it is. Non-resident fees go into special. And it was deposited into fines. So I just need to move the $100 into special.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I would like to move $100 of the non-resident fee from fines to special.
Okay, I'll second that. Okay, all those in favor? Great. Okay, thank you, Janet, for being on top of that.
And as we said earlier, the fee for print got moved from special to fine, so that's all reimbursed. And that was it.
Great. Any questions for Janet or anything? Okay,
Any questions?
great. Thank you, Janet.
No problem.
Okay, acceptance of minutes. We have the minutes from last month, February.
And we have 2 more.
October, you sent, it said final,
The final means.
but
it's
it
just
wasn't voted
Not
on?
voted on.
Okay,
Because the draft is still there up, so I wanted.
okay. I
the
assumed that there was,
approval, yeah.
so we have to
and the-
approve October
yeah,
and November? Okay.
And the February one will need some change based on that sentence.
Okay, so let's look at the October ones then. I have to pull mine up. Let's see. So October. Thank you for being on top of that because I lost track of what we were still missing. So, okay, October minutes. Let's see. Did anyone have anything when they looked at this that... No? Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the October 18th, 2022 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, okay, 400. And then we'll go into the November meeting minutes. Let's see. There are a lot of donations that month.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was a long list of.
Okay. And we also accepted a lot of minutes.
Yeah, all those non.
Yep, the non-public
minutes.
ones. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I sent her a whole bunch.
Yep. Okay. So, does anyone have any comments or changes for those minutes? Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the November 15th, 2022 minutes. Janet will second.
I'll second.
Okay.
I was still also
All
reading.
those in favor? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So thank you, Sohini. So then we're on to our minutes from last month. And there was that one change for the strategic plan, not strategic plan, I'm sorry. The action items that Yvette was going to reach out to the town about an RFP for the chiller and HVAC.
So it will be. Yeah. So I'll correct that and I'll send it to.
Okay.
Are we going to vote on it with the correction?
Yes.
Okay.
So I will make a motion that we vote on it, that we accept the minutes with that correction, the February 21st, 2023. Okay. Any further comments or questions? Do I have a second?
Oh.
Karen, you're going to second it?
Sure.
All right.
Karen.
Wait, the last minutes that Karen will second. Okay. And all in favor? Okay, great. 400. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're all caught up on that. Building Exploratory Committee has not met. Friends of the Public Library, I was not able to make it to the last meeting. Was there anything that you wanted to bring up to the trustees?
I didn't even think to bring a copy of the minutes because we usually do that. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm sorry. Probably nothing because I don't remember.
Okay.
There was I don't remember.
Was there discussion of another book sale or has that sort of been tabled?
Let me check if we put it in because they did talk about that. we were looking at a lot of dates.
Mhm.
In national, we were looking at maybe National Library Week, but then that was spring break,
Mhm.
so that wouldn't have worked.
Okay, well, it's not coming up before the next meeting, so that's fine.
No.
Yep, and I will
Okay.
hopefully be
Okay.
at the next one.
I'm
No
sorry.
worries. Okay,
Yeah.
and the Development Fund hasn't met either. Town Center Committee, Karen, did you?
They met, but I did not go to that meeting,
Okay,
so.
all right, so that's where we are. We have not had a Personnel Committee meeting. Finance, we have not met. So it looks like we're on to our March action items, which what I have so far is that Yvette is going to reach out to Stanley, to the vendor, and just let them know where we are in the process. That Yvette was going to also reach out to the Lane Public Library and talk about the meeting room policy and action, see what that actually looks like. I am going to contact the two patrons who had concerns about Hoopla, and I will reply to them about their concerns. And that Janet is going to move $100 in non-resident fees that needs to be moved from fines to special. Did I get that correct? From fines to special. Fines. Okay, is there anything else?
When's our next meeting?
Our next meeting is April 18th.
Okay.
So I will go ahead and read the other things that are coming up. Town voting day is April 11th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The Merrimack Public Library Development Fund Committee meeting is April 17th at 5 p.m. The Friends of the Merrimack Public Library is April 17th at 7 p.m. So I'm just going to come hang out in the library for a while. The Merrimack Public Library Board of Trustees monthly meeting will be April 18th. And the New Hampshire Library Trustees Association Conference is May 9th from 8 to 4 at the Grapponi Center in Concord. Okay.
Just want to verify that April 11th is voting day?
That's correct.
Okay.
Do we need to have a non-public session?
Just a brief one.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
question.
okay.
You have the Rotary Club.
For yes,
This.
I want to talk about that in non-public.
Okay.
Okay.
I just-
Great.
I
Because it's
close
staff.
things
Yes.
as we
Okay.
talk, so I'm like, that's still open.
Smart.
Okay. Is there anything else for the public meeting? Well, at this point, I do want to once again extend our sincere thanks to Sohini and Karen for all that they have done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And now I'm going to make a motion that we go into non-public session per New Hampshire RSA 91A3 2A personnel at 8:18. And we will do a roll call vote. So Janet,
Yes.
and I say yes, and Karen,
Yes.
and Sohini.
Yes.
Okay, please turn off your microphones. Thank you.